Young, you want to get us started and talk about Mark and his new product he's bringing to the market?
Sure, yeah. Welcome, Mark. So you have a very long history in the ABC industry, and now you've decided to launch Energy Price Book. So what was the inspiration behind this new product and new company?
Well, first of all, it's not just me. It's myself and my business partner, whom I've been with, Thomas Cohenhoven, for the past 20 years. And Price Book is a combination of us serving the CNI retail market for over 20 years and sourcing hundreds of millions of dollars in electricity and natural gas across large buyers and buying consortiums. And after working with buyers and suppliers all this time, the repeating question keeps coming up: what's a good price for energy? And to answer that question, we decided to launch Energy Price Book, which fundamentally addresses a need that our current users are telling us that no former solution did. So what it does in a nutshell is, from a single price request and without requiring meter data, it immediately calculates and refreshes current day and historical price estimates, and it can be customized for any size business, small or large. And it also breaks out the pricing by supply, distribution, and taxes, so you can get a total budget perspective. And the last piece, just by way of context, is we designed this by listening to users over 20 years, in that the application does not take any pricing feeds from suppliers, not matrix, not custom, but rather we utilize our own patent pending pricing engine that, although it mirrors what the supplier desks are doing, it's completely independent from them.
Yeah, so tell me a little more about that, because and I think it might be amusing to our audience if you tell us a little about the TrueCar.com story and how that kind of so basically, tell us what that story is in this context of supplier prices and how that taught you what not to do.
Sure thing. That's a great point. And I'm presuming the audience is familiar with the automotive space, where you've got TrueCar.com, Kelley Blue Book, and other third-party pricing sites. So throughout this whole time in retail energy, and everyone on the call, I'm sure, gets asked, what's a good price for energy? And then it turns into I need your meter data, and it goes back and forth, and it becomes a very laborious process. And we said, hey, if the automotive industry can do it, if the travel industry, real estate, finance, insurance, if they can have these pricing websites that answers that question, why can't we do it for the commercial and industrial space for the retail energy market? So we looked at models, TrueCar being one of them. And TrueCar is a great example in terms of lessons learned and what not to do. And I don't say that arrogantly, because I think I would have made the same mistakes TrueCar did if I went before TrueCar, or we went before TrueCar. But specifically, what happened is, when TrueCar first came out, and I don't know if those of you have used it, they actually published raw cost. And what ended up happening is it turned into a race to the bottom. So the dealerships and the automotive industry said, well, let me get this straight. I'm negotiating against myself. I'm giving you my raw cost. You're giving it to the buyers. The buyers come back, and then it negotiates against me. So they stopped providing the information. Then later in TrueCar's history, they did a little bit of the opposite, in that they inflated some of the pricing information. So then the buyers started to always contract below these TrueCar estimates. So the buyers stopped using the third party. So the lessons learned we got from that was, let's design Price Book to operate independent of the supply base, structure the estimates in terms of fostering collaboration as opposed to positioning one party to exploit the other. And so what we did was design Price Book to give a price range, a high, low, and best price estimate, not a single price point. And then also, this came from the supplier community and the broker community, they said, hey, give us price breakdowns as well, so we can have insight into the more uncertain pricing terms, say like capacity and transmission.
Yeah. And so you explained that you don't need a customer's meter data to generate a price for them. And so I think that begs the question, how do you know it really applies to a specific customer, and what can you do to kind of tailor it even more for those who don't want necessarily like a generic profile?
Great point. What we did was there was, so to speak, I'm probably dating myself with Top Gun, but there was a need for speed. And when we did our research, we found that the pricing websites needed to be applicable to all users, fast, accurate, and easy to use. So the big showstopper with in the retail energy space would obviously be the load profile. That's the long pole in the tent. So over 20 years, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but what we've done was day in, day out, we accumulated 10,000 plus facility load profiles, categorized them, utilized a research team from Carnegie Mellon, and put together load profiles that are user selectable. Now, these load profiles aren't going to be exact, but what it does, especially when our brokers that are using this, as well as the suppliers for lead gen efforts, they could go up to, say, a dry cleaner, a manufacturer, a grocery store. If they're in a discussion, enter the grocery store profile and begin a dialogue where that customer actually sees pricing specific to their facility type. And then it fosters the next step. And then the next steps, and when you move from, say, lead gen to sourcing, there's also an ability to enter a custom profile into the site where you can enter in on a monthly level your usage on peak, off peak, cap tag, and trans tag with if it's applicable. And we have found that we've been within tenths of a mil of supplier pricing when you use the custom profile.
So you're saying there's a sequel to Top Gun?
Well, I'm definitely not Maverick. That's my business partner.
I had to say that because Gino Cortina texted me saying, "Tell Mark there's a sequel." So, all right. So, I guess speaking of suppliers, I know that this energy price book is probably geared towards energy users and the broker community, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think suppliers would also really value this service just as like a third-party independent audit of their own pricing model. Is that fair to say?
That is one of the use cases because it's quick and easy to use, and it's very cost-effective to get the price book. It does not take the place of what we'll call interval meter data in terms of those auditing functions, but it is being used as a price point for, like I mentioned, the more uncertain terms like capacity and transmission. But in addition to just a price auditing tool, suppliers and brokers are using this and leveraging the historical pricing that gets generated from a single price request. And it goes back, this historical pricing can go back to years. So now the buyer sees, am I buying at a high or a low point in history for a specific price request for my specific site? And I think we can all relate, when you approach your customers with countless charts, weather charts, gas hub, gas trading prices, the calendar strips, the electricity hubs. And I'd be willing to bet 2 weeks ago, none of those weather charts predicted what happened in Texas. So when a buyer sees these 10, 20 charts, they often leave that meeting or that session with more questions than they do answers. What our users started to do, and it's really cool to watch because quite honestly, I didn't think of the use case, they did. They bring in one single chart that says, here's pricing over the last 2 or 3 years, specific to your account, specific with this start date, term length, load profile, volume, etc. And it's moving buyers to decisions.
Mark, last question, and then we have to wrap it up because we do have 2 more things, and we were trying to stay under 30 minutes. I don't know if we're ever going to be able to do that, but would Energy Price Book be helpful in providing some insight into what happened in ERCOT this past week?
Well, it certainly cannot predict the future, but what it would have done would enable users to have locked in pricing well before this event took place.
Great. Thank you. So for all of you, I'm getting a few questions about markets you're in and pricing. What I will do is share Mark's contact information if he allows me so that you guys can reach out to him directly. And then TEPA, we will be hosting a webinar later within the month, I believe, with Mark and Energy Price Book so that you can see a full demo and have a better understanding of how it all works.